All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain and step into the world of artist Laura Palacios. We're going to deconstruct a painting technique that honestly looks like pure magic, but is actually grounded in some seriously cool methodical engineering. We're going to build a painting from the ground up, layer by incredible layer. Okay, let's just jump right in. I mean, look at this. This painting of a penguin feels so alive, it's practically glowing. But that effect, it wasn't just made by mixing a bunch of blue paints. No, it was engineered. And the key to understanding exactly how is right there in that statement. This isn't magic, it's engineering. So here's the big idea behind the Palacios method. To paint something that looks real, you can't just think about color. You have to think about building the form, the shape, the luminosity, right from the very beginning. You've got to be less like a painter and more like an architect of light. So here's the first step, and honestly, it's gonna sound a little weird. Before a single drop of blue paint even gets near the canvas, the entire surface is covered in this warm, earthy layer of Naples yellow. Why would you do that? Well, it all comes down to color theory. Orange is the complement to blue. So when you apply those thin layers of blue over this warm base, you create this incredible optical vibration. That orange base just warms up the blue, giving it a depth and a life that you could never, ever get on a plain white canvas. Okay, so our vibrant foundation is down. It's totally dry, and yeah, you can totally use a hairdryer. No shame in that game. Now we move to the blueprint phase. And listen, this is not a step you want to rush. This is where you establish the structural integrity for the entire painting. Laura Palacios calls this drawing phase sacred. And you might think using a grid to transfer the image is kind of like cheating, right? Nope. It is essential preparation. Think of it like a chef doing their mise en place. By getting all the proportions and placement perfect now, you free up your brain to focus completely on the much tougher challenge ahead, sculpting with light. And this is where we get to the absolute heart of the technique. I want you to forget about color for a minute. We are about to create a complete, fully rendered painting using just a single color. We're going to establish every shadow, every highlight, all the volume. This is the grisaille. So what the heck is a grisaille? Well, the most important thing to know is that it forces you to stop thinking about hue and start thinking like a sculptor. You are literally building the form out of light and shadow, creating a three-dimensional illusion on a flat surface. The color? That'll come way later. But the form gets built right now. Now, the process sounds pretty simple, but it's all about patience. First, you lay in the shadows using raw umber that's been diluted with water. Palacio says it's just like drawing with a pencil. You use a really watery mix for the lighter shadows and a bit more pigment for the darker ones, slowly, patiently building it up layer by layer. Then, once those shadows are all set, you start building up the highlights. And here is an absolutely brilliant little secret, a real game changer. Instead of using a pure cold titanium white for the highlights, Palacios creates a warm white. How? By mixing in just a tiny pinch of yellow ochre. It's a small thing, but it makes the light feel like it's glowing from inside the form, not just pasted on top. It just feels so much more natural and integrated. And of course, you can't sculpt with light if you don't have the right tools, right? So a flat brush is perfect for laying in that initial base of the grisaille. A wider brush can help create those super smooth blended gradients in the water. For the sharpest, tiniest details, you'll need a fine round brush or a liner. And then you have specialty tools like a comb brush, which is amazing for creating organic textures like feathers or the spray of water. Every single tool has its job. Okay, so once that monochrome grisaille is bone dry, we have our entire painting's architecture. The form, the light, it's all there. Now, it's time to give it a soul. And that happens through the sheer magic of glazes, or as they're called, veladores. The best way to think about a glaze comes straight from Palacios herself. It's like a bride's veil. It's just a whisper of transparent color that tints and beautifully enhances everything underneath it. You're not covering up your hard work on the grisaille. You're just coloring the light and shadow you've already built. You have to completely trust that structure underneath. And this is the mind-blowing part, the actual physics of why it looks so luminous. When you look at the painting, light from the room actually passes through that transparent glaze. It hits the bright and dark areas of the grisaille underneath, and then it bounces back to your eye. That's what creates that incredible feeling of inner light. The color isn't sitting on the surface, it feels like it's radiating from deep within. And now we come to the golden rule. The one thing you absolutely must not do in this final stage. The colors and the glazes, the blues, the yellows, they're applied in separate, super thin, super diluted layers, and you always let the layer before it dry completely. You never mix them, not on the palette, not on the canvas. Why? Because mixing them makes the paint opaque. It kills the transparency. And if you lose that transparency, you lose the light. You lose the entire essence of the technique. So let's just pull all of this together. What we've just walked through is a process that's, well, it's patient, it's methodical, and it is incredibly powerful. It's a truly unique way to think about building a painting, and it all finishes with a final touch-up, just reclaiming those brightest highlights and deepest shadows to make the whole thing pop. So let's just recap that whole journey, the 4 key steps. We started with that complementary orange base to make our blues vibrate. We made a perfect, surgical drawing to act as our map. Then we sculpted the entire form in monochrome using the grisaille. And finally, we breathed life and soul into it with these thin, transparent glazes of pure, unmixed color. You know what's so incredible about all this? This isn't some new online trick. This is a direct line to centuries of art history. This whole process, separating the form from the color, building a monochrome underpainting first, it's exactly how the great masters of the Renaissance created their own breathtaking illusions of depth and light. And that brings us to the final thought here. We've just broken down how this works for a penguin, but what if you took this whole philosophy, this engineering of light, and you used it on your own ideas? How would a portrait or a landscape or even an abstract painting change if you first built its entire form in the monochrome silence of a grisaille before ever adding that first whisper of color? So on behalf of everyone here at the RIIM group, thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. We really hope this showed you that realism isn't just magic, it's a method. And this one, well, it's truly unique. Now get out there and start engineering some light.